Hi there, Shahla. I'm happy to see that you're sending us more essays again. Great. Let's take a look at this set. This is about travel, the benefits and drawbacks of it. So here's what you said. The number of people traveling in national routes and international routes has been increased in recent time, which indicates the betterment of mass people's mental health and growth of tourism sector. However, it is unavoidable that some disadvantages are also lying within this change, like raise in personal expenditure and severe disruption in the transportation system. In this essay, I will discuss the pros and cons of traveling as mentioned above. Okay. You have the right elements for sure in this introduction. There's a problem with some of the language. Some of it is unnatural, some of it is grammatically incorrect. So I do need to fix it. It's primarily that first sentence, and then there was an error in the second one, so we have to look at that as well. But like I said, the content itself, in other words, the message you're trying to convey is appropriate. So that's good. So let's fix that first sentence. First of all, this is not roots. You wrote root like what grows in the ground from a plant, but what you mean is R-O-U-T-E-S. So it's the wrong spelling. And a mistake like this is a big deal when the word that you've spelled wrong creates another word like it has here, because then the examiner reading it is kind of like, what? And so it creates a misunderstanding in meaning. So you got to be careful about that. So, also, we don't use increase in the passive voice really very much. It should be active voice. So it should be the number of people traveling in national and international routes has increased in recent times. Okay. And then I thought this whole expression was really rather strange and difficult to read. Because you said, which indicates the betterment of mass people's mental health. It's a very kind of difficult expression to understand. I would have rewritten it entirely. First of all, it doesn't indicate anything. Perhaps it suggests, but it doesn't indicate. Okay, so you have to be clear about the difference in meaning of those two words. You don't want to overgeneralize, all right? You don't want to say that something indicates something when really we have no proof of it. So you may want to say something like, which may suggest that this improves mental health. But still, you're making such a leap here in your ideas that because travel is increasing, you assume that it improves people's mental health. So we don't know why you've made this you've made this conclusion. It's unclear. So I would really avoid this altogether. I think there are other things you could have said here. Why don't we try it, and maybe I can give you a suggestion here. The number of people traveling in national, maybe not even national, it should just be in domestic or traveling en route. No, on. The number of people traveling on domestic and international routes has increased in recent times. Full stop. Certainly, there are some benefits associated with this travel. However, it is unavoidable that some disadvantages also lie within this change, like the rise in personal expenditures and severe disruption in the transportation system. Okay, so you can see I added something else. I combined it to this sentence, and then the rest of it is absolutely fine. Okay, so I did some rewriting here. To begin with, the mental health condition of men and women is directly benefited through traveling. In other words, traveling is playing. How about traveling plays a significant role in mental peace by keeping one's mind fresh and stress-free. For instance, a recent study by World Mental Health Association has found that people who travel regularly do not act depressed, violent, or impatient. You want an adjective here, impatient with a T, compared to the people who have never left his/her hometown. In addition to that, the tourism industry is making a higher profit nowadays due to the craze of traveling. Local and multinational travel agencies. All right, what happened here? Local and multinational travel agencies, no comma, meet a larger number of clients annually, which is not only multiplying their investment, but also creating job opportunities and taking part in the country's per capita income rate. Okay, I'm trying to follow your train of thought here. So since they are meeting, I didn't like this expression meeting. So local and multinational travel agencies are gaining a larger number of clients annually, which not only, I didn't understand this, multiplies their investments. What does that mean? Whose investment? The client's investments? The agency's investments? So it's a very unclear expression here. And I think maybe you don't even mean investment. Maybe you mean income, but you said income here. So it's all very confusing to me. Which does something, I'm not really sure yet, but also creates job opportunities, and this is strange too, takes part. Why don't we change that to a different word? And how about it also contributes to the country's per capita income rate? All right, I think this is a little better like that. Don't forget that we don't use contractions in IELTS. So you can't use let's, and to be quite honest with you, I don't really care for this expression, partially because it sounds a little too conversational, so I would prefer that you avoided this. You could say something like, for example, Nepal is a wonderful case study. Their tourism industry has flourished in the last 10 years as a leading industry and has actively participated in the economic growth of the country. Okay, fine. So in terms of content, it's fine, but there is some awkwardness in your language, all right? Let's look at the next paragraph. Not on the contrary. This is a wrong expression here. On the contrary has a very, very, very specific way that it is used. I think what you're really looking for here is in contrast. That's the expression you really meant to use, and that would have fit here quite appropriately. All right, so let's take a look. In contrast, a number of people would suggest against the increasing practice of traveling due to two key reasons. Firstly, it requires an extra budget, and many youngsters are wasting money on this. For example, students often travel domestically 2 to 3 times a year without creating a clear budget breakdown, which costs unnecessary financial pressure in the family. All right, I would like you to explain this a little more. Don't just go into your secondly. Secondly, transportation like bus, train, airplane, buses, trains, and airplanes often face a severe disruptive situation due to the crowds in the holiday period. To elaborate, arrival and departure schedules and platform numbers S are often changed or postponed at the last minute to cope with this heavy load. For instance, too many people fly to New York. That doesn't make sense. Too many people fly, how about to New York during the Christmas vacation with a capital C, which initiates a chaotic environment. No, you don't initiate an environment. In the airport, and some flights often encounter lengthy delays. Okay, I definitely feel like this previous paragraph was a little stronger. The fact that there are periods of time when travel is very hectic doesn't really explain why there are disadvantages to travel. It could be one of the inconveniences, but for me, the disadvantages of travel are kind of larger issues, if that makes sense. So maybe you could have talked about the environmental effect that travel has. Maybe you could have talked about the watering down of cultures and this sort of catering to the tourists and to the visitors, and so places end up losing their natural beauty or their characteristics that made them so interesting as tourist sites to begin with. So those to me are kind of looking at this issue of the disadvantages of travel, whereas I feel like what you talked about here isn't entirely a disadvantage, but it's really just one of those inconveniences. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So to conclude, traveling has its own benefits and side effects which cannot be denied. Ideally, the Ministry of Tourism, capital, and private companies should come forward to utilize the advantages and mitigate the drawbacks it has. All right, that's nice. I like that. Mitigate the drawbacks. That was some nice language. So for me, I would definitely have to say that the weakest part here is the grammar. I thought that some of it was a little awkward. But as far as your coherence and cohesion, as far as your task achievement are concerned, I think you fared pretty well with both of them. Okay, so good work. But let's take a look at your task 1 here. This is the letter to your friend. Great. Dear Paul, how are you? You'll be surprised to know that I have just resigned from my job at the production company. As you know, I was expecting an increment this year, and in last month's meeting I was informed that the salary raise is not going to happen until next year. So I did not have any other option but to leave the job and take the offer of the advertising agency who would pay me more. All right. This is okay. There still are a couple things I want you to fix. First of all, I'm glad that you asked Paul how he is. That's important. You need to do that in a friendly letter. But I felt that you really just kind of rather suddenly skipped to your news. Okay? I would have preferred some sort of kind of more gentle segue into this. Something like, I have a lot of news to tell you about changes in my life. Just a little introductory sentence I think would have been nice here. And then this was just fine. And the word increment is wrong. You were expecting a raise. You were expecting a pay rise. You were expecting a salary increase, something. One of those words have been okay, but not increment. So let's try it like that. As you know, I was expecting a raise this year, and in last month's meeting, I was informed that the salary rise, I guess, is not going to happen until next year. So I did not have any other option but to leave the job and take the offer of the advertising agency. The way you say the advertising agency, it's as if Paul already knows which one you're talking about. So maybe you mean an advertising agency. All right? I think that would be a better choice here. Take the offer of an advertising agency, which, they're not people, so it's which would pay me more. My new work responsibility is coordinating day-to-day video recordings. How about is coordinating, maybe you mean the day-to-day video recordings or something about this that sounds a little strange, for different media outlets. Most of the time I work from the office, but once or twice a week I have to visit the outdoor shooting locations to make sure all the clients are happy with the process. You wouldn't believe how, no, get rid of much. You wouldn't believe how relaxed I am here comparing to the previous job. Other than the jobs which I have not faced any major changes in the last couple of months, my parents are doing fine, and they were asking me about you last week in a family get-together. I met our school teacher, Mr. Burb, there after 8 long years. He looks the same and still makes terrible jokes that nobody will understand. Okay, get rid of the will here, that nobody understands, with an S. Do you remember my cat Lily? She gave birth to 4 kittens on that evening. On which evening? That's not clear. And now I'm looking for someone who would like to adopt. Hope to see you soon. Cheers. Okay, that's nice. I liked a lot of this. I felt your tone was absolutely appropriate. It was informal. It was friendly. Especially this last paragraph I really liked. So it was good. Let's see. Like I said here, I thought that this segue was a little sudden. I also would have liked you to say something a little more rather than hope to see you soon. So I felt you kind of cut off your letter rather suddenly, very much in the same way that you started it. So I would have liked, I talked to our friend Julia, and she's going to be having a get-together. She said she would contact you to come. Just say something like, arranging to meet, or, I can't wait to see you next month, or just something, so it doesn't really just cut off so suddenly. Okay? Now, I just want to do a quick check of your word count. Okay, it was 233 words, so maybe you could have gotten rid of some of this, because it is kind of long. I'm not really concerned about it if you did this in the time that you had, which is about 20 minutes. Let's see about this. 396, okay? So both of these really were rather long. Like I said, I'm also not concerned if you did both of these in an hour. But you may want to think about cutting out some of the extra things and focus on maybe improving some of the language, revising, and just giving yourself a couple minutes at the end to make sure that all the language you're using is correct, okay? But good job overall. Just go ahead and keep in mind some of the issues we talked about, okay? Good luck.